Welcome to another edition of College Basketball Net Profit on Pub Sports Radio. Wednesday, November 30th. Ian Cameron, Conor Mack, ready to break down a Wednesday college basketball card. Hopefully it treats me as well as it did last night. It was a terrific night. A lot of good results. The best bet got there was Southern Miss. We had Marquette plus the points. They just put the boots to Baylor last night. That's something we're going to start to do on the show. Before we dive into the games today, we'll recap the night before, especially when it's a bigger card like last night. People made a case for Louisville, buy low, buy low. They still suck. They still got absolutely annihilated. Maryland.
Hey, we said it.
Yeah.
We
did. Buyer beware. I mean, maybe Louisville they haven't corrected Louisville as to how bad they are, and they lose by 30 plus against Maryland last night on their home floor as well. So apparently it's getting worse, not better. Duquesne got it done. The NC State William and Mary went over the total. Lots of good results. It was a good Wake Forest won outright against Wisconsin. I like Wake plus the points. It was a very good night in college basketball. Conor, how about you? I think it had some nice results as well.
It's pretty nice too. I did add UC Irvine. They covered. You mentioned Marquette there. I had some money line too with them. It was a decent night all the way around. Bellarmine, covered the big number. So solid night. For sure.
Yeah, it was. But that was then. This is now. How are we going to add to it? We'll see how we can do that. And we will begin. It's another big night of ACC Big Ten Challenge matchups. We will begin with, although this one is not to get us going, it's actually a Big 12 Big East matchup. Kansas State and Butler. Butler 3-point favorites here. The total in this game, 132.5 across the board. I've seen enough out of Kansas State now, Conor Mack, where I understand there's still people not really trustworthy of this group yet, even though they're 6-0 to start the year, a team that was prognosticated not to be as good this year, the Wildcats. But so far, you can't argue with the results. They've taken care of business. Now they beat two solid teams, LSU and Nevada, that neutral court tournament. Now they go to Butler, Hinkle Fieldhouse here, take on the Bulldogs. Now, both of these teams are off neutral court tournaments. So to me, that cancels each other out. So you don't factor in, nobody's really got a situational edge here. I wasn't going to bet Kansas State initially, but now that they're 3-point dogs, I'm taking them +3 in this game. I mean, I like what I see. They've been pretty solid at the offensive end of the basketball court so far this season, been able to shoot pretty well. Defensively, they've actually been better than I expected. Butler is pretty solid in terms of defense. Their offense can be a little bit more up and down. And I think when you look at some of the rebounding numbers here, actually in this matchup, you look at Butler, a poor, I should say, offensive rebounding team, and K-State's very good cleaning up the defensive glass. Could that be an advantage here for K-State? We'll see. But I understand people not liking Kansas State when they were favored on the road by a point in the opening line of this game. Now they flipped it to Butler 3, and I think that's opened up some value on Kansas State now in what should be a pretty close competitive game. So I'm going to take a small shot here with Kansas State +3 now that the line's moved and giving them some value, in my opinion. What do you think here, C-Mac?
Yeah, these are two teams I don't trust Butler. You maybe had to pick them. That was my initial lean in this game, but I just couldn't get there. I've been a tad bit impressed with K-State. You mentioned the turnaround, basically kind of gutted, whole new thing going this year. So I've been impressed with them. Now here at this number, I kind of lean their way. I don't think it'll be easy. And like I said, I still don't know much of Butler. Decent win, blowout loss. The bad loss, I believe it was to Tennessee. I think up and down. So a game I don't want to be involved with.
Next up, we got Vanderbilt and VCU. On the docket here, we've got the Rams, a 1.5-point home favorites here, 128.5 the total in this game. Definitely some respect toward Vanderbilt here as the money's come in on them initially. They beat Fresno State, beat Temple in overtime, which was a solid win, but they've also had some really bad losses as well. Although we're finding out Southern Miss is pretty good. So, 16-point favorites against Southern Miss. Yeah, it looked like a horrible loss at the time. Southern Miss playing good ball. They lost to Memphis. They faced a pretty tough schedule overall. VCU, they lost to Arizona State, lost to Memphis, ended up getting past Pitt 71 to 67. This is a good home court for them, and I understand Vanderbilt's probably played a little bit tougher schedule. Their resume looks a little bit better early on, but don't sell VCU short here on the home floor. Of course, what you do want to be aware of is whether or not Ace Baldwin plays for them. He's missed the last 4 games with a wrist injury, questionable for tonight in this game, but Vanderbilt has won 3 of the last 4. We just saw VCU struggle to get past Kennesaw State 64-61. So I think there's been some reaction to that. Jaden Nunn's been good, though, for the Rams. If they can get Baldwin back, I'm actually leaning VCU against this market move here toward Vanderbilt. I think now that it's closer to a pick-em, there's value now on VCU, who, again, strong home court historically, 3-0 at home already straight up this year. Lean VCU. I'm getting close to the point where I'm ready to pull the trigger on it. What do you think here, Connor?
Man, I don't want VCU. I want to make sure Baldwin is in and healthy. This team looks a little bit different right now than last year. I don't think they've been as good defensively, for sure. Flip side with Vandy, I've never loved them too much on the road. I get the initial move, when this was 3.5. I kind of like that, and I didn't jump on it. I didn't love it that much, but so yeah, in the end, I'm going to stay off it. Maybe this total's just too low, and an under like this, I could get burned. I think it might be too low in the end, so I'm going to stay off.
All right, next up, we've got, as we continue along here, Richmond and Toledo. Good matchup here. We got Toledo 5-point home favorites, 145.5 the total in this game. I like Toledo here. It's gone up, but I agree with it. Now, their defense can be a little flighty. We know that. We've said that before about Todd Kowalczyk's team. They can absolutely shoot the lights out at times when the offense is going. It's as good as it gets, but offensively, they've been a little shaky at times, but I'd say that about Richmond offensively. I mean, we've seen Richmond, barely get into the 60s in a lot of their games. The only time they got, about 70-plus points was against Charleston, who plays lightning fast, and Syracuse, who have struggled defensively all year. Their other games, they cracked 61 against Temple, 53 against Wichita, 68 and 69 points scored against Northern Iowa and VMI. Definitely not a fan of what I've seen from Richmond offensively. So something's got to give, right? Richmond struggled offensively. Toledo's shown some cracks in the armor at times defensively, but I think the home court is going to end up being the difference maker here in the end. You got Toledo here at home where they're 2-0 straight up, 2-0 against the spread. Richmond on the road lost their only true road game this year. I think the price is short enough. Toledo is able to get the job done here. And because they're the home team, Richmond's going to want to slow it down. Toledo's going to want to speed it up. I think Toledo will get their preferred pace. And anytime I see a Toledo game total in the 140s, I often think it's just a little bit too low. So I'm going to go Toledo laying the points and over 145.5 as well. C-Mac, what do you think?
Yeah, I agree with you here. I think the total's too low. And what will help out? Richmond at times cannot shoot it well, but when this bad defense at Toledo that can be there, I think they will get there. Maybe the low 70s. And I think Toledo could be mid 70s or higher, especially if they're shooting it hot. And the big key is, don't let Burton for Richmond kind of go off. I think he's, their best player. But I see points. I lean Toledo there. And you could look Toledo team total, even in a spot like this, if you don't want to lay the 4.5. But I like the over, the best here at 145.
All right, now this is the first of a bunch of games that we'll be talking about from the ACC Big Ten Challenge. Rutgers, Miami taking place here. We've got Miami home favorites of 3, 136.5 the total in this game. Rutgers to me is better than Miami. I just believe that fully. I mean, Miami has not been overly impressive. They're 6-1 straight up somehow, but when you look at the competition, Greensboro, it's been sisters of the poor early on. Florida A&M at Providence was their one decent opponent that they beat. Maryland, they got steamrolled. St. Francis, New York, UCF, who've been up and down. They only win that game barely. To me, Rutgers is just flat out better, but we know Rutgers on the road can be tough to trust. That's always the hang up, right? Do you want to trust Rutgers here on the road? I'm going to here in this spot. A small bet on Rutgers. It's not anything that's going to be close to one of my top plays tonight, but I think they've got matchup advantages. I think they can take away some of that Miami size. To me, the guard play from Miami has been up and down. I think Isaiah Wong and Nigel Pack, they got, of course, him from K-State, Isaiah Wong, the guard that's been there now for a few years, he's really had some ups. He's had some downs so far this year, some good performances, some bad ones. He hasn't actually shot the ball well at all the last 2 games. 10 points against St. Francis, 8 points against UCF. To me, that's troublesome here against a Rutgers team that can dig in on defense. Like I say, to me, the only thing that would tell me don't bet Rutgers here is their road record, and that is significant, the road struggles they've had. But I'm going to look past it tonight. I'm going to get over this phobia of not trusting Rutgers on the road, because I think at the end of the day, they're going to end up being a better basketball team this year long term than Miami. And if they don't win and cover tonight, then we say, you know what, we're not going to touch Rutgers on the road for a while. But I'm going to trust them tonight. I think they're the better team. And even if they lose, you're getting 3. This could be a one-score, one-possession game down to the wire. I'm going to take a shot here, Rutgers +3. Connor, what do you think?
Yeah, that's what I'm leery about, the 3. But there's 2.5s. I lean the other way here with Miami. To see Rutgers truly, I think become a really good basketball school, to start winning away from home, like you mentioned. I did like Miami's win, that close win against UCF. I watched some of that game. But both these teams are inconsistent at times, like you mentioned. Just like you think they're the big win and the loss. I need Miami here. If you get 2.5, I'd lay that here at home.
Yeah, no doubt. And keep in mind, they've got one of their best players coming. Mulcahy might actually be back, but the big one that's returning is McConnell for Rutgers. He's back tonight. Caleb McConnell. He's missed first part of the season with a knee injury. That's significant. That's a big piece of this team, not only offensively, but even more so at the defensive end of the court. He's actually one of the better defensive players in the country, honestly. And that is definitely going to help Rutgers at the defensive end. I lean under the total as well, actually, in this game. And I'm not a big under guy, but I think this one could stay under 136.5 here between Rutgers and Miami tonight as well. All right, Ohio State taking on Duke, another ACC Big Ten Challenge matchup here tonight. We've got Duke 5.5-point home favorites, 135 the total in this game. This is a tricky one because I don't see me liking Duke enough to lay these points with them. They're off that blowout loss to Purdue. They did beat Xavier, won and covered, but only won by 7. They had that, head-scratchingly bad performance against Oregon State where they held on for dear life and won 54-51. They lost to Kansas, of course, earlier this year. It's definitely showing to be a team that with John Shire at the helm, they're going to need a little time to get the chemistry right here for this Duke Blue Devils team. Hasn't fully been there yet. I think Ohio State, from what I've seen from them so far this year, I think they played better than Duke flat out. The only concern here is they've not played a true road game, especially in an environment like Cameron Indoor. You would expect Duke here to, have a nice home environment here on a Wednesday night, and something that Ohio State hasn't seen yet this year. But you look at Ohio State, I like the way they're playing. They drilled UMass, they drilled Sam Houston, or Sacred Heart rather, in their first game. Columbia as well. They had a 6-point loss to Temple. That's the only stumble they had. Actually, you know what? I'm looking at Rutgers' schedule here. Where was Ohio State's? There it is. No, they faced better competition than that. Here we go. San Diego State, Cincinnati, and Texas Tech. They won on the neutral court the last 2 games. Ohio State, they've been tested. They played some good competition. I think the point spread is just a little too high here. I really do. And even though Ohio State, again, hasn't played a true roadie yet, I don't think this Duke team is playing at the level that I trust them laying 5.5. You look at their results against some of the better competition. They've been life and death in many of these games. And if it's life and death for them to squeak by tonight once again, then Ohio State's going to get inside this number and cash a ticket. And I think that's what's going to happen. So I like the Buckeyes here, +5.5. What do you think here, Connor Matt?
Yeah, I kind of too. Duke just seems a little bit out of sorts. This seems like a good get right spot for them a little bit, but they've been dismal shooting the rock. 3/20th from 3. They haven't been good early in the year here. So it's tough. I get someone just wrote in the chat the over. I mean, that's what I think with these 2 teams. They're just too quick with Ohio State. This line's dropping, though, a couple points with all this over money. I don't always look into that. I do look into that, but it's always not the craziest thing, especially when you have so many college basketball games. Because I disagree. I don't, as long as Duke isn't so horrible shooting it, I'd like this over. in this spot. And I agree with you. I think until I see more from Duke, which they're super talented, I think Ohio State has the shooters here and can keep this close.
And Ohio State, the more experienced team. This is a freshman.
Yeah.
This is a freshman, sophomore laden Duke team right now. They've got a lot of new faces, a lot of youth on this squad right now, and clearly we're seeing the first few weeks of the season. It's going to take them time to really fully develop into the team they might eventually become, but they're not a finished product. Far from it right now. All right, next up, as we continue along here, another one in the ACC Big Ten Challenge, Purdue and Florida State. In this one, currently we've got Purdue 16-point road favorites, 136.5 the total. Look, these bad teams. I mean, if you've been trying to be too cute and try to say, you know what, this team stinks, but now you're getting value in the number, you're not doing well. If you did that with Syracuse last night, you lost. If you did that with Louisville last night, you lost. And it feels like that with this game, Connor Mack, at least to me. Like if you're betting Florida State, you're only betting them because, they're getting too many points. And it's value now. It's buy low. But buy low didn't work out well last night with those two other teams. This is a lot, though. And it's on the road. It's 16. It's not even the 12 that Maryland was laying last night against Louisville. This is 16 points. This is a huge number to be laying with Purdue. That being said, they could eviscerate them. We just saw them destroy Duke, destroy Gonzaga, destroy West Virginia. There's no way I'm taking Florida State, but do you want to take Purdue in this spot when they're coming off just a terrific neutral court tournament, where they were rolling through the three opponents they played? They beat Marquette on their home floor. We see how good Marquette looks and looked last night in particular against Baylor. It's just, to me, Purdue or pass. Do I have the guts to lay this many in a spot? Like, there's a bit of a down spot for Purdue. Let's be honest. I mean, is the focus going to be there? You just beat Gonzaga and Duke, all right, in back-to-back games, and you destroyed both of them. And now you've got to basically come back down off that high, traveled all the way down to Tallahassee here, and face this struggling, reeling Florida State. You know what I mean? If the heads aren't on straight, and this might be the only hope Florida State has to be competitive in this game, is that Purdue's heads aren't on straight. But if they aren't, Florida State could maybe just slip inside a number of this size. But I sure as fuck don't trust them too. So I'm going to lean Purdue, but I'm going to pump the brakes on laying 16. I almost did, but I'm going to lay off. What do you think here, Connor?
Yeah, I think the better move would look at their team total, and I'd have to pull that up. I had it earlier today. I'd look that way with Purdue. This Florida State team defensively is not good, and they have a problem scoring. I mean, they just, in the 60s, these games were Stanford, they got 72 at Troy, 58 versus Nebraska. I mean, man, that is not, this is a long ways away. Maybe Florida State gets better, and it's ugly right now, but the only way is to look for Purdue. But you mentioned the flat spot, everything like that. To go in and win by 17 or more, almost basically 20. And maybe, the back door seems like this could just be open here in this game. They're up 20 with a couple minutes left, 3 or blah, blah, and they win by 15. But to me, it's Purdue or nothing. But I'd look at the team total, and I think it could just get over as well, this total.
Yeah, I would lean over the total as well, just a little bit here. Purdue certainly, we worried about the guard play falling off. Of course, Jaden Ivey's in the NBA now, no longer with Purdue. How is that guard play going to be this year? And more of a post-oriented offense, so centering around Zach Edey, the 7-foot specimen. But Fletcher Loyer, I should say, has been a nice pickup. They've gotten good minutes out of him so far this year for the Purdue Boilermakers, no question about that. Ethan Morton's been solid. Braden Smith. So, and of course it's centered around Edey, of course, 21.7 points per game. And the concern for Florida State is they are one of the worst teams in the country in their rebounding numbers, both offensive and defensive rebounding, offensive and defensive glass. They have been just bullied by other teams. And then you've got that size of Purdue and Edey specifically to have to contend with tonight. This could be layup and put back city for Purdue. Second chance, third chance opportunities constantly, because they're going to be banging the glass and just owning it over Florida State in the around the rebounding situation. The rebounding margin has the potential to be heavily in Purdue's favor in this game tonight. All right, Providence and TCU. next up here on the Wednesday slate. We've got TCU currently 6.5-point home favorites, 134 the total across the board. Total's been bet down a little bit here in this game. TCU is obvious. Both of these teams are pretty good basketball teams. TCU 5-1 to start the year. Providence 5-2. TCU very impressive win against Iowa 79-66 over the weekend on Saturday. Very impressed by their defense to hold that great Iowa Hawkeye team to just 26 of 61 shooting, 66 points. Tells you how well they played defensively there. Providence, is one of those teams that people think they're a little bit not fraudulent, but they get a little fortuitous. Everybody was talking about how lucky they were. They won so many close games last year, but that is something they have in their repertoire, is just this ability to play, tight competitive games. So as much as I think TCU is a little bit better right now than Providence, I don't know if I want to lay 6.5, because at the end of the day, it always feels like Providence is right there at the end and has a chance. So, I don't have a strong opinion on the game, but at 6.5, I'd probably lean slightly to the Friars because they just have a way of keeping things close. What do you think here, Connor?
I think so too. I think they're the solid shooting team that could keep you in this. Man, this is tough though at 6.
Yeah.
If like the 8.5, sometimes we mention this. This seems like would more be a jump on 8.5, 9. I do think the Horned Frogs a little bit better, and here at home, I'd have to look it up if you have it pulled. I just had it. That one game Providence went on the road, they lost by 10. A decent team. I'm gonna have to pull it up. That kind of seems like this maybe. So I'll lean to Providence with the points here.
A couple injury concerns, though, too, for TCU coming into this game. The big one's Emmanuel Miller, a back injury, out once again. Now, they survived Iowa without him. But Peavy's questionable as well. He's approached double figures in scoring on average per game. So we'll see. I mean, TCU certainly has shown the ability to overcome some of these injuries, but they do so again. And now they're laying 6.5 off a big win against Iowa. You worry about, can they not get too read their press clippings, if you will, when you play the way they did against that good Iowa team. I worry about that a bit. That's why I definitely lean Providence. They just have an ability to stick around in games.
Exactly. Miami, they lost by 10. Miami on the 19th.
Yeah, that was the one game that got away from Providence a little bit. We'll see if this one does. All right, Georgetown, Texas Tech. Next up here, we've got Texas Tech, 16.5-point home favorites here, 137.5 being the total in this one. First true road game of the season for Patrick Ewing and the Hoyas. Will they be ready for it is the question. I don't think so, especially against this type of opponent. I mean, you look at who they've played, Northwestern at home, and they lost by 12. At Loyola, Maryland, or Marymount, I should say, on the neutral court, they lost 84-66 a couple of weeks ago. They lost to American University as well, 74-70. They barely beat the Retrievers, UMBC, 79-70 at home in their last game. This is a team that is struggled actually to put the ball in the basket consistently. And if you're struggling with some of these teams, how are you going to do? How are you going to fare against Texas Tech? Now, Texas Tech did have a couple of performances in Maui where you say, hey, what happened to their defense? Creighton put up 76 and shot better than 50%, and Ohio State shot the ball well against them. But first of all, Creighton's an excellent team. There's no shame in that. They're a tremendous offensive team. And second of all, that Ohio State game was a consolation round game. So sometimes you got to push it to the side when a team doesn't look great defensively. Sometimes you don't have that focus you need. I think Tech back home now in Lubbock, they get back to that hard-nosed defense and really grind Georgetown down here in this game. I mean, I'm kind of leaning toward a Georgetown under or a full game under. Full game under and a Georgetown team total under. I think Georgetown's going to have a hard time scoring. I definitely would only lay the points, but I think I'd probably look more in the lines of Georgetown team total under or the full game under as opposed to laying this many with Tech in this game. What do you think here, Connor?
Yeah, I think they win here. This is just a lot with a team that just needs to get the chemistry here at Texas Tech. We talked about Shannon who left Illinois. McCullough, he went to Kansas. a lot of their points gone, but I think they are good. They should win here. It's just right now, I don't want to lay it with this Texas Tech team, but you might be onto something, to that under. They're always going to play defense, especially at home. So, yeah, I'm off here.
All right, next up as we continue along here, it is Michigan State and Notre Dame. We head back to the Big Ten ACC Challenge. Michigan State 2-point road favorites. Notre Dame 140 the total in this game. Michigan State has definitely had their share of injuries early in the season. We've talked about that previously when we've previewed Michigan State games here on the Net Profit Show. Notre Dame has definitely been they've been winning. We can make it sound like they've been terrible. They're 5-1, but they haven't been winning impressively against, not exactly a huge, tough strength of schedule early on. Radford, Youngstown State, Southern Indiana, Lipscomb, Bowling Green, and then they lost 63-51 as 6-point favorites to St. Bonaventure, who are basically starting over from scratch this season. So not been pretty for Notre Dame. But I don't know if I'm ready to lay points on the road with Michigan State either. They barely beat Portland 78-77. They beat an Oregon team who's been dreadful, but Alabama, they lose by 11. Like I said, depleted roster at the moment due to the injuries with Hall and Akins. Both of them are still going to be out for this team. Puts a lot of pressure, on just a couple of players to be significant and be strong every single night, like Joey Hauser, Tyson Walker. The guys like that have really got to play at a high level with much lesser margin for error than there was previously due to the injuries. It feels like from a spot perspective, it's a Notre Dame spot. Home underdog here. Michigan State vulnerable. Michigan State's been traveling a lot too. Notre Dame, certainly going to look to bounce back after a disheartening performance against St. Bonaventure. Tough game, but if you made me choose, I'd take the points and take the home dog Irish before I lay points on the road with a riddled injury-wise Spartans team. What do you think here, Connor?
That's how I feel. Just a shitty spot. The injuries right now, with Michigan State. I think a good basketball team, but not great here. The problem, I can't give this now is this because I like the over, and this has already moved 5 points. There's right around there. It's open at 135.5. I did grab a piece of it there. I think this goes over here. Michigan State been all right defensively, but Notre Dame a little lax, and they hit shots. When they're rolling a little bit, they're hitting the three ball, they're shooting, especially if they're going down. This game goes under. A little bit now a lean at 140, but I think it goes over.
All right, next up, North Carolina and Indiana. Another ACC Big Ten matchup here on the card. We've got Indiana currently in this one. I think the line's moved a little bit. Yeah, they're up. Well, they were up a little bit. Now it's back to 4.5, 5-point home favorites at Assembly Hall. 145.5, 146 the total. I like the over a little bit in this game. I think you can make a case for that. Indiana, certainly, I don't mind them at all offensively. What we've seen early in the season, great start for them. 6-0 straight up, 6-0 or 4-1-1 against the spread. 4-0 straight up, 3-1 against the spread on their home floor. They haven't played an overly tough schedule. Xavier's probably the best team they've played so far, but nevertheless, they've taken care of business. Like I said, they've looked very sharp in terms of the offensive end of the court. They're second in the country in field goal percentage so far, 43rd in three-point percentage, and North Carolina can't defend the three early on. That's got to be the first thing you're worried about here if you're Hubert Davis and this North Carolina team. Your perimeter defense has been chopped liver early in the season. Could be something concerning here, taking on the Hoosiers in this game. Indiana, what I like about Indiana is that they've all these guys have been here for a long period of time. Jackson Davis, of course, is someone that feels like he's been here now for 4 years with this Hoosiers team. He's been here forever. He's getting better and better and better. Xavier Johnson, is a veteran player. Race Thompson, same thing. These are guys now that have been around the block, and they put it all together now. They're all upperclassmen. They're all playing at a high level. Really good basketball right now we're seeing from the Indiana Hoosiers. I lean Indiana, honestly, 4.5, 5 in this one. This feels like, again, you're buying low on these struggling teams that were supposed to be better than they are. Not so much Syracuse and Louisville, but those two teams, you're looking, hey, we got to finally bet these teams their value on their side, and they still didn't cover last night. We talked about Florida State. Yeah, we think there's value on them, but we're reluctant to back them. And I kind of feel that way about North Carolina. You know, they lost to Iowa State, they lost to Alabama, they won every game after that, but they've been very unimpressive in a bunch of these games, like the Gardner-Webb game. They barely won on their home floor by 6. They barely beat Portland, and they were trailing much of that game. You know, this has not been a crisp effort from North Carolina. Kind of shocking, you know, considering, you know, who they bring back from the team that got all the way to the national championship game last year. This is a team that should be doing better than they have in some of these games. When you bring back Caleb Love, you bring back Leaky Black, RJ Davis, Armando Bacot, you shouldn't be this mediocre to begin the season if you're North Carolina, but you have been. You've been underachieving, and are you ready to take on Indiana here on the road? I don't know. So I lean a little bit to the Hoosiers here, 4.5, 5-point home favorites, as well as over the total. What do you think here, Connor?
Yeah, this game's interesting. Yeah, Star Child, Notre Dame a little bit slow, and that's the problem now at 140, that total, like I mentioned. I mean, that's up to you, the 5 points on the over. You know what? Indiana, Xavier, that was that solid game. That was close that they won, but I don't think they played anybody. They should be jacked here though for this one. Uh, Bacon, I think, is gonna go, even though he's banged up with that hip or whatever he's dealing with. I think there's too much talent though. I'm just here. If you get 5, I know I'd take it with North Carolina here. It's not like my go-to favorite look, but I think that might just be too many. I like Indiana. You mentioned Davis. These guys that have been here, but they haven't been great the last few years. They've been kind of mediocre. They're not an unbelievable basketball team that's been top 5. So this would be a big win though for them if they at home here. But I'd still grab the 5 with North Carolina. Too much talent. They lost by 5 to Iowa State. What was that? 2 by Alabama. That game went, I think, in OT, 103-101. I think at least they keep it close. Yeah, wild. That game was wild. I think they keep it close. So I mean, you have me here. I'd take the 5.
See, that's another thing that worries me situationally with North Carolina. They're off that crazy game against Alabama, and a 2-day turnaround later, going from where they played that game out in Portland, flying halfway across the country now to Indiana for this game against the Hoosiers. So tricky situational spot too for the Tar Heels. Not to mention, they've been struggling.
I know everything's kind of stirs here to either side, and then Carolina has this dog.
But you're talking about 4.5, 5 points was what we still thought was going to be a great team again this year, and that's the thing too. Yep.
Yeah, exactly. Yep. Tough one, but I might get there. I don't know. I think I might take Carolina. I haven't decided yet, though.
All right, let's go to the West Coast now for the last 2 games for the marquee game section. USC taking on Cal. We've got USC right now 9.5-point road favorites, 127 the total in this game. Yeah, this is very simple for me. I'm laying it with USC. Cal's fade until further notice. As far as I'm concerned, I've not been impressed one bit. They can't score the basketball. Same shit with Mark Fox here. Over the years, it's been a putrid offensive team. And USC can defend. 43rd field goal percentage defense in the country early in the season here for USC. A USC team that has gotten, a solid Vermont team, BYU, Tennessee, and Wisconsin on their schedule early on. So they've played people. Not only the numbers that are good defensively, but they've done it against competition. Cal's played, Kansas State. They couldn't hang in that game. TCU and Clemson, they did cover both of those games. But, the Clemson game in particular, I'm not impressed with what I've seen consistently game to game from the Tigers. I think USC could just crawl their way through toward a double-digit victory here in this game. Cal, by the way, on the season, like I said, on their home floor, this is not a home floor in Berkeley that is very, very dominant or impressive. Haas Pavilion's not that kind of place that has opposing teams quaking in their boots when they go there. They're 0-4 straight up, 0-4 against the spread on their home floor so far this year. USC has no look-ahead spots. They've got home games after this with Oregon State, Fullerton, Long Beach State. Full focus here for USC. I think they roll. I think I'm going to lay the 9.5 here with the Trojans. What do you think here, Conor?
Yeah, it's starting to reach almost double digits here. I think they win too, like around this number. It feels like that. I kind of lean under. The total's a little bit too low. Cal just hasn't been able to score. This team can't get past, 50, 55, 56. They're not very good. So yeah, it's just gotten a little bit out of hand, but this seems like an 11-point win. for SC. I lean that way, but I'll be off here, and I'd take the under, on this total.
They either miss a shot or they turn the ball over. That is what Cal has done pretty
Yeah,
much
it's
all
just
season.
they're too bad offensively. I'd like to take them as a dog here. Like if they were getting 12, that piqued me, a little bit.
Yeah.
It's not enough here for me with them.
Yeah. And the lesson of the week so far, last night, Monday night, I mean, it's just if you're trying to buy low on the bad teams, you're not buying. It's not time to buy yet. Again, I go back to Louisville last night. I go back to Syracuse last night. People thought buy low on those teams, getting more points than they would have before the season. Syracuse was getting way more points against Illinois than they would have before the season. Same thing with obviously Louisville against Maryland, and it didn't work out, with either of these teams. So don't step in front of the falling knife, or if you let these bad teams show a pulse first, before you run out there and back them. So that's why I like USC. So let's see Cal, get some offense and hang inside and be competitive. A number like this before we're ready to back them. All right, the last game of our marquee games, and then we'll take some Q&A from the chat. It's New Mexico and St. Mary's. We've got the Gales 9.5-point favorites here, 137.5 the total. I think this one might actually get over the total, and I'm not usually someone that bets a lot of St. Mary's games over the total, but it is worth noting they've gone over in 2 straight. The Vanderbilt game got to 140, and that total was only at 124. The Washington game got up and over the total. They played Vermont, a very efficient offensive team. Oral Roberts got over the total. I find the better offensive teams that'll push the pace, push the tempo a little bit, those are teams that St. Mary's can sometimes see their games go over the total against. And you might see that here, this New Mexico St. Mary's game. New Mexico has started the season off not bad at all offensively. Obviously, we know there's a great defensive team here with St. Mary's, but New Mexico so far on the season, 45th ranked offense in the country, 29th in tempo. So you talk about extreme slow versus extreme fast. That's what you've got here in this game. But I find this total is low enough it can get there. Don't forget, too, that while St. Mary's is excellent defensively and plays very slow, we know that, they are absolutely no slouch offensively, and New Mexico's defense can still come and go. So I think on their home floor, St. Mary's, you're going to see them be able to shoot the ball and score pretty nicely here in this game. And also keep in mind, too, we've got a New Mexico team that has not been great defending the three. St. Mary's is shooting the ball well from three at 38%, 57th in the country with three-point percentage for St. Mary's. They've had the likes of Mitchell Saxon, Kyle Bowen, Alex Dukas, Logan Johnson, all helping out offensively for the Gales this year. Balanced effort. I'm going to take this as a sneaky over. I think we get into the 140s here with the Lobos and the Gales. What do you think here, Conor?
I think so too. I think New Mexico can score here. This will be a big game for them. This is one late night that I want to watch. Can they score here on St. Mary's in this game? Man, St. Mary's is good. This number, they impressed me early. That bad loss to Washington wasn't good. I lean the points here with New Mexico. I think, as long as shots go for them, I think they're in it. Now, they're not great defensively, but, it's been okay early on. They haven't really played anybody, too, New Mexico. So this will be a different type game. But I lean the points, and I think you're right. I think this could get over the total. As long as New Mexico gets to the rack and scores here, I think it's just get over.
All right, there we go. That's the marquee games. We will get Q&A from the chat. If you've got a game we haven't talked about yet, you want to ask us about it, put it in the chat now. We'll answer them in a sec. Conor Mack, it's a big card tonight for a Wednesday night, much bigger than any of the cards we had each of the last 2 nights to start the week. But any games here that you want to mention that we have not gotten to yet?
Just some games I'll roll through real quick that I'm looking at. It's been a wild day for me here, but Hofstra, George Mason, I like the over there. This move is already
I agree.
2 points.
Yep.
Yeah,
I agree there. Yep.
I like that over. I'm on it. We talked about it. Someone mentioned already in the chat. Let's talk about this. I lean to NC State or Indiana State here, plus 2.5 versus Drake. It's a very interesting game. Do you have anything in that one, Ian?
I don't fade Drake. I'm not interested in fading Drake, but at the same time, Indiana State's impressed me as well. I think it's a great game to watch. I'm off the side. I lean over the total in that game, actually, because Indiana State wants to push the ball.
They do.
Drake doesn't push it as much, but we know they can score. DeVries and company, we know that's a good offensive team. So I like the over more than a side in that game.
That's how I feel. I like it as well. Tough now, at 150 or so. That was one I took a little earlier too, the over. But I like Indiana State. I will take them here. This seems to be, though, if this was 4.5, I'd really, really like it, or something like that. But I still like it at 2.5. Drake on the road. I want to fade them there. We touched on Miami. This is a game I like a little bit here. Is Northern Iowa, which they're dealing with a couple things and injuries, but I don't know if Bradley should be this number. Basically, I don't know if they should be 7. That's what it's touched. And now I've seen just in the last 30 minutes come back. Basically, there's 6.5s everywhere. I think that's too much. Northern Iowa been a little bit shaky. We know how they are on the road, but I think Northern Iowa with the points here is the way to go against Bradley.
I haven't bet it yet, but I'm leaning more toward that side, Northern Iowa. Northern Iowa is usually a team that's been very good in the underdog role for years. It's been this way with the Panthers. They've been very, very good catching points. Just their style of play, it's worked out that way. So I definitely would lean that way again. And don't forget, too, one of the guys that was expected to be a big contributor here for Northern Iowa this year, Nate Heiss. You're not going to see him back until January either. So that's probably what's given them some point spread value. They've adjusted them downward a bit, but you look at them, they've been competitive in some games. The Richmond game kind of got away from them, but San Francisco Dons on the neutral floor, 6.5-point dogs. They lost by 6. They were right there with Grand Canyon. They could have won that game. We found out you don't want to lay points with this team, but 2-0, 2-1 already ATS this year as a dog. So I'm with you. I would lean to the Panthers there.
And I just don't know how much Bradley kind of, now we flip that. That's a team that should be laying points. It's like opposite them catching. I haven't been that impressed by Bradley a little bit. So, yeah, I like the points there with Northern Iowa. That was about it for me.
There we go. That's about it for Conor Mack in terms of his looks here. For me, I did play a little Temple -5 against LaSalle. Usually in those Philly school matchups, you want to take points, but I think they're just a lot better than LaSalle right now. So I laid 5 with Temple against LaSalle. What else do we look at here? I mean, I took the over with Akron and Marshall. I think we get over the total there, 144. I definitely like the over in Eastern Michigan and Florida International, and I like Eastern Michigan plus the points as well. I've been on Florida International a lot lately, but they've been laying points against teams that are either bad or they've got key players out. That's not going to be the case tonight. So I like Eastern Michigan offensively to score enough to stay close. So I like Eastern Michigan, and I like the over. Even at a high number, 162.5, but you're going to get lots of pace in that Eastern Michigan, Florida International game. I'm on Hampton, +18 against Georgia. Hampton in. I fade Mike White and the Georgia Bulldogs anytime they're laying this kind of price. And Hampton can score. Hampton's not great defensively, but they can score. I like Hampton +18, 18.5 even in some spots against Georgia in that game. We mentioned Drake, Indiana State. I like the over there. I like Hofstra, George Mason over the total. Conor Mack mentioned that. Middle Tennessee State, St. Bonaventure here. Was that a buy sign on St. Bonaventure? Don't forget how good this coach is, Mark Schmidt. He's been here a long time, obviously replacing everybody from that great team last year. And it's been some growing pains, but you beat Notre Dame. I kind of lean St. Bonnie. I know someone asked about that game. I think maybe this is a sign that this team's going to be a little residual value. They're starting to turn a corner. Yes, Jake Burns, St. Bonnie's. I haven't bet it, but I lean that way here with St. Bonaventure -3 tonight against Middle Tennessee
I like
State.
it.
Yeah,
I like what I've seen from them a little bit lately, especially, here today. I like it.
And all things considered, that home court, well, last year, especially at Olean, New York, it can get rocking. Obviously, tonight, I wouldn't expect that too much. Middle-week game against Middle Tennessee. But, no, they've been a good home team historically, St. Bonaventure. So I'm with you there. I would lean to St. Bonnie a little bit there. I like Chattanooga, even though laying points. I just don't think much of Tennessee Tech. I think Chattanooga is the better team. So I'm going to lay 7 on the road there with Chattanooga against Tennessee Tech in that game. What else have we got here? Kind of like Wilmington +1.5 against Coastal Carolina. I've been impressed. Wilmington has definitely exceeded my expectations early on. Monmouth and Rider. I'm laying 8.5 with Rider. I mean, Monmouth has just been dreadful. We've talked about that. I'm going to go back to the well there in terms of fading Monmouth in that game. St. Joe's Penn, lean a little bit to St. Joe's, like the over in that game. South Carolina, George Washington. South Carolina has been rough so far, but George Washington laying points against, I think a team that's going to get better over time. I kind of like South Carolina there, +3. I have a small bet on the Gamecocks in that one. Loyola Marymount, Colorado State. I agree with the over money there. I think that one goes up and over the total. Samford, DePaul, same thing. I think we got a lot of points in that game, over 154, the current number there. Boston College, Nebraska. Someone mentioned that in the chat. I'm going to take Boston College here. I mean, these are two teams that are struggling, but we're talking about Nebraska here, laying 6. They've looked out of sorts. I still think that there's some good things to come here for Boston College. Their first true road game, but come on, it's Nebraska. You really think that home court is something we need to fear for a program that's obviously been in a tough way? Boston College can be really rough on the offensive end of the basketball court, but I think defensively, I've liked what I've seen from BC at times this year. Ugly game, but I think it's just, laying 6 with Nebraska is asking a lot, in my opinion. So for me, it would be Boston College there, taking the plus points in that one, and I did bet that indeed. What else have we got? Anything else that we left off here? CS Fullerton and Seattle. Numbers gone up in terms of the total. I kind of agree with that. Look to the over and the added board. Let me just see here what I've got in the added board. Not a whole lot actually tonight with the games on the added board overall. I did consider UAB against Jacksonville, but Jacksonville's not a bad team this year, so we'll see. It may be a little bit of a flat spot there as well for UAB in that game, even though we know they're the better of those two teams. I like Prairie View and Rice over the total. Rice never plays any defense. You should see plenty of points in that game between Prairie View, A&M, and Rice. So I do like that total over the number quite a bit. And I'm going to look at Central Arkansas, +13 against Loyola Chicago. Loyola Chicago ain't right at the moment. Loyola Chicago's having some struggles early in the season. That's a lot of points there. And Central Arkansas is very capable offensively. And we haven't seen that same Loyola Chicago Ramblers defense that we're, that hard-nosed, tough, physical, half-court defense. It hasn't been there consistently this year. So I'm going to take the big points there with Central Arkansas, +13 against Loyola Chicago. And that is it. As I'm looking down at my list that I've sent out, that's it. So it's a big card, and there we go. So what did we not get to in terms of any games that people have asked that we didn't just mention here? Oh, Citadel, Don Play. Mentioning that the Citadel here in terms of getting the 3 in their game tonight. Citadel are always a team with the way they've played over the years. I'm interested to take points with them. I lean to Citadel there. Charleston Southern, very flighty, very up and down in a bunch, and not a team I'm usually rushing to support when they're favored. So haven't bet it, but I lean in your direction there, Don Play. Citadel +3.
I got nothing on it.
All right.
You got Samford here? You have anything here?
Yeah, I just mentioned the over in that game.
Okay.
In a game with a lot of points, I'm always and I don't unless I have strong conviction with the favorite, and I definitely don't when it comes to DePaul right now. I'd obviously lean Samford, but I think the over is just the better option in that game.
Okay. For sure. I think we've got most of them.
Yes, we'll get one more from Jake Burns. Last question here. I'm on Temple, Nunya. Yeah, but I'm on -5. I'm not on money line against LaSalle. Florida Gulf Coast, -5 in their game. Florida Gulf Coast, I think they're supposed to be pretty solid this year. And remember, Florida Gulf Coast has faced some real tough teams. Yeah. So, I think it has them ready. And I think they're better than Georgia Southern. I lean their way. I didn't bet it, but I lean to Florida Gulf Coast -5. I think they can win and cover that game, even on the road.
I agree with you. I don't love that it's 5, but I think they are the better team there. Yeah, for sure.
There we go. All right, excellent. That's what you call rapid fire here. Oh, Harvard and Yale. In terms of Harvard and Yale, or Yale's playing Howard, and Harvard's playing Holy Cross. Holy Cross is pretty rough defensively. They can't. I kind of lean over both games, honestly. Especially, I think I like Howard Yale over the total a little bit more. I'd actually lean to the points with Howard a little bit. Howard sometimes has these double-digit dogs. I've seen them hang around in games, and Yale came back down to, has been very strong so far this year. No question about that. But in this spot, right before we get into December and conference play, Howard's no slouch offensively. I could maybe look toward maybe Howard as a dog there. I think we mentioned Bucknell earlier against I don't think we did yet, but St. Francis, PA, Bucknell for our guy Jay Peasy. Yeah, I definitely would lean Bucknell. I almost did. There's an injury concern I had for the Bison in that game. One of their key double-digit scores was questionable for tonight. I didn't know if he was going to play. That kind of talked me off Bucknell, but I'd only take Bucknell. St. Francis, PA is rough, really rough. And Bucknell, they've only been at home once this year, and it was against Niagara. They were favored, and they won by 18. So I think they're capable of winning this game by double digits. I just wish they were not having that guy questionable. He's one of their better scorers. But I'm with you. I would only take Bucknell -6 in that game.
Definitely. To touch on it, Howard's just been so hit and miss.
Yeah.
Like if they're on a little bit, they cover. And if not, man, it can get ugly. But I don't know if Yale should be laying that. That one was tough. I did look Howard's way, and I lean over a little bit in that one.
All right, there we go. That is the Wednesday slate. It's a big one in college basketball. Lots of games. Iowa, North Dakota. There we go. Hanar, just one last one before we wrap it up. You know what I think about Iowa is I knew they were going to eventually lose one. Or you're talking about Iowa State, sorry, North Dakota. I'm thinking of the Hawkeyes. Iowa State Cyclones. Iowa State's been really impressive. They could roll in that one. I leaned to lay in the points, but 24.5, that's a lot. But I've been impressed with Iowa State. They're my team. I cashed tickets with them a bunch in that neutral court tournament. They impressed the hell out of me, but they're coming back from that. Yeah. It's not a spot I'm rushing to lay 24.5, but I don't think – I think North Dakota is completely outmatched, but I'm not going to lay 24 in this spot with Iowa State.
Let's touch on this. Did you touch on Loyola Marymount, Colorado State?
Yes, I like the over that number. I like the over there, yeah.
I do too. It's gone a little high. It's dicey now at 144. I don't know if Loyola, I don't know if that's enough. I think they're a team that can get hot and shoot it well. I'd still, even at this number, you haven't got it, which is the shits. Yep. But I think get over the total.
I like the over here. The sides. I don't like going against the Rams at home. I like that home court of theirs. I like Nico Medved. He's a great coach. He's not got Moody like he had last year, but he's still got a very good team. And on that home floor, they are not a team to screw around with. I mean, they've destroyed teams already a couple of times on this home floor. Marymount's pretty good, and it's going to be a test for them. But I'm not ready to step in front of the Rams at home, so I'm totally off the side. I'm just looking toward the over in that game. Yeah. Great stuff. Thanks to the chat for all the questions. We appreciate it. Hit the like button. 153 live viewers. We've got Southern Utah tonight. The Thunderbirds. Right away, when I think of Southern Utah, I think that that game over the total with Montana State. But Montana State's kind of plodding. Danny Sprinkle, I like that team. I actually leaned Montana State. They're 2.5-point dogs. Didn't bet it, but I leaned to the Montana State side.
Yeah, I had no look in that one. Anything with Southern Utah before it bounced?
That was it. Southern Utah, Montana State.
Sorry.
State. Yep. The Grizzlies.
Sorry, Howard, Yale. We're going through the same games here, kind of.
There we go. And Howard plus the points. We both lean that way in that game. All right, that's a wrap. We'll close up shop on the Q&A. Best bets coming up right after we hear from Manscaped and Southtown 101. All right, Southtown 101. When you're in San Antonio, Texas, stop in. Great food, drinks, live music, DJs, karaoke, Southtown 101, and manscaped.com. Promo code PubSports. Get 20% off your purchase. Lawnmower 4.0 or any Manscaped product. 20% off with promo code PubSports. All right, best bets here to wrap up this edition of college basketball net profits. See if we can keep the good times rolling and the profits rolling with best bets. Connor Mack, what do you like for best bet tonight?
Yeah, let's get it. Richmond, Toledo. I'm on the over 145. I'm on Northern Iowa. I got the 7 just before, but I think 6.5 is okay in that one. And I'm laying it with Miami, -2.5. I think they get the job done at home. Lastly, I think I might be on North Carolina 5 and New Mexico 9.5, but I haven't got there. Hit me up. I might bet it.
There we go. How about that? A potpourri of best bets for Connor Mack here for the
So many
big
games.
Wednesday
You just
card.
got to give back to
Yeah, this is like a
bunch.
mini Saturday card with the way it's transpired here. There's a lot of games on the board tonight, a lot of good ones. So fascinating to see how it all plays out here tonight for a Wednesday night. My best bet here for this Wednesday slate, I am going to roll with. There's tough decisions across the board, but I'm going to go with this over between North Carolina and Indiana. I like it. I think we'll get over this total. 145 at DraftKings, the best number available. We cashed it. Nice winner with Troy on Monday. Followed it up with Southern Miss, -7.5 against Montana last night. So I'm 2-0 with best bets this week here on the show. Although, what did I have Tuesday? I'm trying to think. Did Tuesday's win? I know Monday we had Troy. I'm trying to think Tuesday. We're either 3-0 or 2-1. But we're profitable with best bets so far this week. So far. Oh, this is Wednesday. This is
Yeah, you
getting
won
my
last week,
days
right?
mixed up.
Yes,
This is Wednesday.
Yeah.
I had Troy Monday and I had Southern Miss last night. There we go. We're 2-0. We are 2-0 with see, I keep thinking it's Thursday. So 2-0 with best bets. Let's see if we can make it 3 in a row this week. North Carolina, Indiana, over 145. There we go. Best bet from the Wednesday college basketball card. All right, that'll wrap up this edition of the College Basketball Net Profit Show. Thanks to everyone in the chat for joining us. Hit the like button on the way out. We appreciate it very much. A reminder, we're back tomorrow, 5 p.m. Eastern. Once again, another edition of College Basketball Net Profit. Smaller card tomorrow, but we'll still find some good bets. Make no mistake about it. For Connor Mack, I'm Ian Cameron. Have a great Wednesday night. Enjoy the games and good luck, and we will talk to you again tomorrow, 5 p.m. Eastern on Thursday for another edition of the College Basketball Net Profit Show right here on Pub Sports Radio.